There are accounts in the Bible of people being mysteriously taken away or caught up by the Spirit. For many Christians, a similar event, known as the rapture, is anticipated, where potentially millions of people will ascend to meet Jesus in the clouds. Now, if you were to witness such an event, what might that event look like? Our instinctive understanding of being caught up suggests a movement in a vertical path, like ascending to a higher elevation. Now, this assumption is valid since being caught up does have a vertical element, but perhaps there is more to it. Let's begin by looking at Acts chapter 1. Now, as I describe this account of Jesus, try to visualize what takes place. After Jesus gave his commandments to his disciples, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. Now, while they beheld Jesus being lifted up, two men standing beside them in white apparel said, "Why stand here gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as you saw him go into heaven." Now, at first you might visualize Jesus going up in a vertical direction, similar to a balloon filled with helium going up into the sky, and slowly disappearing out of sight beyond a cloud. However, I wonder how far or at what elevation did Jesus actually go before reaching heaven? Did Jesus rise above the cloud and the cloud hid him from the apostles? Did Jesus keep going until he reached the outer limits of the Earth's atmosphere? Perhaps he traveled through the solar system and beyond the galaxy. Instead of this description, let me propose a different view of this account. Now imagine the apostles intently listening to Jesus as he gives his commands. While they are focused on Jesus and unaware of their surrounding, a mysterious cloud forms above them. Jesus then finishes his commands and starts to ascend upward. The apostles look toward heaven as they watch Jesus ascend and enter into a cloud. Notice that verse 10 says that the apostles looked toward heaven as Jesus went up. Next we see two men, or the two angels, say, "Why stand here gazing into heaven?" Instead of looking toward heaven, the apostles are now described as gazing into heaven. Now these two angels say the phrase "into heaven" 3 times in this verse. Perhaps this cloud that received Jesus was no ordinary cloud. Is it possible that this cloud was actually a portal or a doorway into heaven, and the apostles literally watched Jesus enter into it? Now, an open door into heaven seems strange. However, we see similar language when John writes about seeing an open door into heaven in the book of Revelation. John hears a voice that says, "Come up here, and I will show you things that must take place hereafter." John is then described as being in the Spirit and enters into heaven. Now, John did not mention seeing a cloud with his experience. However, he did mention a rainbow, lightning, and thunders, which are elements associated with cloud formations. So it seems as though portals to heaven and clouds are connected. If so, what might these clouds look like? To answer that, let's look at another example in the Bible. Most Christians are familiar with Elijah being caught up to heaven. Now, Elijah's big rapture day was no secret to the people during that time. For example, the sons of the prophets went to Elisha, which is Elijah's servant, and said, "Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from you today?" And Elisha's response was, "Yes, I know it. Hold your peace." Also on that day, 50 men of the sons of the prophets stood at a distance to view that spectacular event. Now, while Elijah and Elisha were walking together in deep conversation, a chariot of fire and horses of fire suddenly appeared and passed between them. Elijah was then taken up in a whirlwind into heaven. The Hebrew word here for whirlwind can be interpreted as a hurricane or tempest. Again, we see this rapture type event associated with clouds. However, this new insight puts a whole new spin on the idea of a cloud being a portal into heaven. Spirals can be seen in various ancient artworks and artifacts, spanning different cultures and historical periods. Some believe that these ancient illustrations may symbolize portals or gateways into other dimensions. Now, I'm not saying that the cloud that Jesus went into looked like a spiral. However, it is something to consider. Also, is it possible that people in the ancient days knew about these doorways into heaven? Remember the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11:4? The people said, "Let us build a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven." Notice that it didn't say into heaven, but unto heaven. Perhaps the people thought they could build a tower that would reach the clouds or a portal to heaven. Oddly enough, some depictions of the Tower of Babel resembles a spiral design. However, this idea is not set in stone. Let's look back at Jesus. Remember, Jesus ascended into a cloud, which we said was a portal into heaven. Also, the two angels told the apostles that Jesus would return in like manner. Revelation 1:7 describes his return as, "Behold, he comes with clouds." Some verses describe Jesus on clouds and some say with clouds. Regardless of the phrasing, it appears that multiple clouds will be with his return. In addition, every eye will see him when he comes back. One cloud may not be enough for the whole world to see. However, multiple mysterious clouds around the world would likely get the attention of the people. So, with what we have discussed so far, how do you visualize the event of Jesus' return? Seems similar to something that Hollywood would portray as an alien invasion. Portals opening up in the sky, people being abducted or vanishing with a snap of a finger. It seems as though Hollywood believes that this event will literally occur and clearly depicts it in their films. Of course, when such an event does happen, there has to be an explanation for what occurred. How do you explain such a phenomenon to the world? It seems like it would take many years to convey that message. Now, some people may say that all of that Bible stuff and phenomenon has no scientific evidence to support it. Obviously, this is what they want you to think. Who are they? Well, the same people who believe in it. Take the Stargate Project as an example. The Stargate Project was a secret project established by the DIA in 1978. For those who have never heard of the Stargate Project, it mainly involved a phenomenon called remote viewing. Remote viewing is the proposed ability to psychically see events, locations, or valuable information at great distances. In addition to psychic abilities, remote viewers have also reported having out-of-body experiences. Now, the Stargate Project was reported as terminated and declassified in 1995. So keep in mind though, the US government doesn't believe in all of this hocus pocus stuff, right? But rather in proven scientific research. Now, if that were true, why was this project active and funded for 20 plus years? What's even more profound? The CIA reported that the project never provided any useful information during that time period. Now, that seems a little odd, doesn't it? So it's up to you to decide if all these supernatural occurrences in the Bible are real, such as being caught up into portals to heaven. I will say, if you want to know the truth, follow Jesus. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So if you haven't done so already, turn toward Jesus, ask Jesus into your heart, and follow him. Now remember earlier I said our instinctive understanding of being caught up suggests movement in a vertical path, like ascending to a higher elevation. Although this is true, what if there is a deeper significance behind this notion of up? In our next video, we will explore how this notion of up may not imply just a physical change in elevation, but perhaps also imply transcending to a higher dimension.